Hello, my name is Creostix, and I figured it was a good time to do my Game of the Year award right about now, with a few runners-up in the process as well. A quick caveat though before I begin, I usually don't have time to play, or the funds really, to play all the games when they come out. I just really don't have the money to buy everything at full price and then play them. So oftentimes I end up playing games 1 year or 2 years after they've come out. So also I don't have a PlayStation 4, so I haven't played any of those obviously either. But I'm hoping that it'll be a bit of an interesting set of a list because of that. So let's just go for it. I was wondering if I should do like a numbered list, but in the end I figured in this specific scenario, I think it's better to do, I believe it's going to be 4 runners-up and then the Game of the Year at the end, okay? So, the first runner-up in no, like, particular order of which is the best one of these, obviously, but the first runner-up is Thronebreaker: The Witcher Tales. It's, quickly enough, it's this, single-player puzzle quest-like game in the Witcher universe where the puzzles are really challenges of Gwent or puzzles in a Gwent board, the card game in the Witcher universe. I had a good time with it. My small gripes were like really it has a bit of an issue in uneven difficulty in that it's super easy for the most part, and then just spikes a couple of times, like, whoa, that's weird. But beyond that, it does some interesting things with, say, choices, where you're doing choices with a ruler instead of, an individual fighter, which just changed the board enough to give a different sort of a perspective of good and evil and necessary and all that, and all that stuff. So I felt the choices and the story were interesting, and I had a couple of issues with it here and there, technical issues as well, but I did enjoy it. My second runner-up would be Dark Souls Remastered. I know I've heard people complaining about how some PvP things can be like there's glitches to be exploited and all that stuff, and I'm like, well, it doesn't really move me because I don't play Dark Souls games PvP. I just had a good time playing it, I went through it, I actually got all the achievements for it, and finally I have, on the current consoles and such, a Dark Souls game that doesn't suffer from the FPS lag of all of the, Blighttown places and all that stuff, so it hits a pretty even 60 FPS, so that's good. So I liked it. Moving on. The next runner-up would be Age of Empires Definitive Edition. This one came out early in the year, but it did, and it scratched my very specific nostalgia itch, if you will, because Age of Empires 1 was more or less, I think, my first RTS game as a kid, and I just loved the concept of this building buildings, and it was all new to me, and the game is really the same game, just looks more crisp with the exact same style, though. It's the exact same looking, just better, if that makes sense. Like, imagine in your mind what Age of Empires 1 looked like, and just sharpen all the pixels into looking good, but the style is exactly the same. Exactly. So that's the thing. My one gripe with it would maybe be that while I understand keeping the game exactly as is, AI-wise and such, I would maybe have appreciated if they would have, made the pathfinding AI a little better than what it was, back when the first Age of Empires came out, so there's that. But beyond that, I had a good time with it. Next runner-up is Soul Calibur 6. I'm actually a bit of a Soul Calibur player myself. I've played all of the, Calibur games, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I've enjoyed all of them. I feel that the series has been in a bit of a downturn from, 4 was and 5 was even a bit more but 6, I feel, is a considerable return to form. It has a couple of different story modes, and the PvP seems to be more or less okay, at least as much as I've heard. I don't usually play out of PvP. I play more of, PvE and, campaign modes and, maybe couch versus and such. So that's my jam. But from what I played, I've enjoyed it, and it has a very robust character creation system, which it creates some pretty fun things for you to fight against, or at least you'll see some other creations to fight. Yeah, the one gripe with that one might be that the campaign mode for your custom character has a few issues in how cheap the difficulty challenge is. That it's sort of, I don't mind if a fight is hard, but I mind if a fight is hard for the wrong reasons. Like well, it feels just like you get lucky eventually. Beyond that, you can't win. But again, those are just a couple of optional fights in the custom campaign mode. Beyond that, I've had a good time with it. So there you go. And the main reason I really wanted to do this video is to really focus for just a little bit on what is indeed my game of the year of 2018. And that would be Return of the Obra Dinn. Return of the Obra Dinn is, oh boy, where do I begin with this one? Because I don't want to spoil anything about this. It's so good, and saying anything too much would be maybe a little, risky. But I'm gonna try to tell you, like, the very base premise of the pedigree of the game and, like what the genre of it is and what you're supposed to do, okay? So, it's made by Lucas Pope, the person who made Papers, Please back in the day. Well, a few years ago. And in Return of the Obra Dinn, the gist of it is that a ship has, come into shore, which was, thought missing, and it seems empty, I think, and then you work for the East India Trading Company. Your job is to go on board and find out what happened to the crew and all that good stuff. And how you do that is you need to find a dead body or something like that. And then you have a magic watch that allows you to travel into that very, still instant of when that corpse died. You can, walk around in there, try to identify who is who, what's the cause of death of this one, and so. And then the game sort of, lets you move on from, dead body to dead body, and so on and so forth. It sounds weird already, I know, but I promise you it's super interesting, and I loved the game. Another really, really unique thing about the game that has to be mentioned is the look. The look is like this two-colored, graphic style that's 3D first person, but you also, how can I put this? The small details in front of you still look like stylized pixel graphics, if that makes sense. It's like this black and green or green and white or whatever look, and then it's polygons technically, but then close up there's pixelated graphics as well. It's really, really interesting, and it sounds weird, but I promise you it looks like it has a look. And it's one of the best looks I've seen in games. Not the most advanced graphics, but the most, the best look, Not the most technical, but best look. So that's, that has one. And what more can I say without, truly... Oh, right, what you're, actually trying to accomplish is indeed to find out what happened, and you do that by just writing up in-game... you need to put a name and to a face, and then explain how this crew member died. You do that to all of the 60-ish crew members on board, and you do that by means of, indeed, diving into the moment of how this person died, and then you go on from there. It goes places, man. It really, really does. And I feel like saying anything more than that would almost be a disservice. It's an investigation bureaucracy, file up what happened game that's just... It goes places, it's super interesting looking. You have to try it out at some point. I would be very surprised if you're disappointed by it. It can be a bit hard every once in a while, but it does have a system where you can try to brute force some answers a bit. I believe it's like the game tells you when you have 3, fates correctly in that name, face, and what happened to them. Like 3 of them correctly, and then the game logs them like, yep, these are correct. So you can brute force a bit. So you shouldn't get too much stuck. There's gonna be a moment or two when you probably don't know, okay, what do I do next? That happened to me as well, but eventually you'll find something out like, oh, okay, and then just move on step by step. And if you do get stuck, I would advise against looking things up, because there's only one time to solve this stuff, and the clues to finding out who is who and all that, they are there. Just need to keep on looking, and it's fun when you find something out. But indeed, yeah, I feel explaining too much more than that would be a bit of a disservice indeed. Although I want to mention the soundtrack, very, very good as well. But yeah, so indeed, like, I haven't played almost any of the long, expensive, big games that came out in 2018 quite yet, and the ones I have were a bit disappointing in that, Tomb Raider wasn't too good, and I wasn't a fan of Detroit either, so, but, which I got to play, at a friend's house, if you will, and, yeah, but beyond that, I believe I'm kind of done here, because this is indeed what I wanted to I wanted to give credit where credit is due, and just make up, like, what were my most positive experiences in gaming in 2018, and indeed, Game of the Year, Return of the Obra Dinn. Just try it out, just trust me. But I do hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, please do drop a like or a comment, and indeed tell me what was your Game of the Year, or what you feel I should absolutely play, and indeed, if I didn't mention your favorite games, I almost certainly haven't just played them yet. It's fine, don't worry, I'll probably get to them at some point, but yeah, so, there we go. But yeah, with that though, please do indeed subscribe or share if you want to. And I do hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you again next time.